let's do some infinite colonies. So I recently started to use more Poison in my build and also use Poseidon in my build. So naturally I'm also using him in my infinite colony build as well. So today we will be seeing my current infinite colony build in action and also maybe some variations for it. So this is my current defense for the infinite colony as I'm approaching 11 million waves. This is almost like 8 ratio for me for the infinite colony, which is pretty decent for now. That's something I've been trying to maintain. I don't really fully focus on infinite colony, but it's something that I can pretty nicely maintain 8x ratio for it. So this is the build currently running. There's definitely some stuff that you can change in this. There's definitely some stuff that might work better for you if you are in different state of the game that where I am currently, or if you have different set of items, if you have different set of levels, races, and so on. So there's definitely some stuff that could be very different in this build as well. So for example, as you can see, I don't have Slingers in my infinite colony build, and you are probably used to using Slingers in your infinite colony build, which is of course a very viable thing, and in most cases you probably should do, especially if you have the Slinger PS node. However, for this build I changed. So I'm heavily relying on Stos to give me healing during the infinite colony runs. So I changed my bar building to Forge so that I can have more casual HP, so that I can get more heal from every Stos cast. So I don't have the bar to boost Slingers, so I figured, okay, I'll try to drop Slingers, and I took in Ice Windy instead. And as you can see, the crowd control is kinda nice. However, this is something, there's a lot of variations you could run instead of Windy in here. Let's try something else. That was the first run, victory plus 20 skip. The battle results look like this. So Poseidon is doing absolutely superb job in Infinite Colony. He's great in waves, he's great in Infinite Colony, he's not that great in farming, but otherwise he's a great hero. If you can afford the Ice Tree as well. And instead of Windy, in this build, you could run another crowd controller. Let's try, for example, you could run a Mech Ram, for example. If you run knockback items for Mech Ram, I have currently in this, I think, 1 knockback chance on the weapon and 1 knockback chance, 1 stun chance on the accessory. So it's gives me the cooldown skill level +1 lines, which are super important for me because I need to really rely on the Stos healing. Now Stos is relatively low on cooldown related to my pure wizard here. As you can see, 6.2 is my pure wizard cooldown for this infinite colony build. It's a little bit higher than in my wave build, but let's see how this will work. So basically the idea is the same. You need to have some crowd control units and be able to knock back the enemy monsters so that you can push them all the way back to the enemy castle, so that your damage dealers can also target the castle as well and not just the normal monsters. Now Poseidon kinda does splash damage anyway, so he's great in that sense, and he also, when you crew up the enemies like that, he can clear them pretty nicely. Succubus and Bowmaster are just dealing a little bit of extra damage over there, and Sarah as well. It's really heavily relying on Poseidon's damage for this build right now, and I believe, as I can see, the enemy monsters, they are getting a little bit maybe more through when I'm using Mech Ram than when I'm using Windy. So it's also something that really depends on your items and your build in overall. Just you need to have that enough level of crowd control so that you can stun and knock back the enemies. Also slow is important if you have the Ice Tree for increased damage against slowed monsters and so on. So what I'm trying to say is every crowd controller unit basically is a viable choice potentially for you in Infinite Colony, and it's something that you most likely have to figure out for yourself. But starting with stuff like Mech Ram and Slingers is a very viable choice. Dorothy is also a very viable crowd controller, and also because I have the Witch node in the skill tree, I'll go through the skill tree as well in a moment. I will also get more damage for my Dorothy for my other units through Dorothy being in the build. So that was the run with Mech Ram in V1. I think it was a little bit slower, perhaps, maybe it just felt like it. But if you take a look at the results, these are the results in here, and these were the results in the Windy. And because everything is doing more damage, that means that most likely the run took a little bit longer. Because the enemies will keep on spawning the longer you battle in the Infinite Colony. So having bigger numbers on everyone is not always a great thing. That probably means it took a little bit longer to defeat that Infinite Colony. Now, again, we could try something else instead of Mech Ram in here. Like, we could probably try Slingers. I have pretty decent Slinger items for those who are not aware. This is the sword, there's knockback, there's slow, a lot of attack speed, and there's stun in here as well. Maybe you could run more knockback in Infinite Colony for sure. These are the same items I use for waving, so we can try these these as well. I don't have the bar, so we are only getting 5 or 6 Slingers because I have the +1 summon unit line here, but still it should be doable with Slingers as well, as you can see. It's just, for me, Windy feels a little bit faster compared to using these other crowd controllers in this slot. But again, this is something you very likely have to try for yourself, if that's gonna be what is gonna be the best for you. Like, for example, if I switch out Dorothy from the build and I would run, let's say I would run Slingers and Windy. Sure, it's super great for crowd control, but also I will lose the extra 5% damage from having a witch in my build, which kind of makes my healing also worse. And I try to not level my Dark Elf more than really necessary, because I don't use Dark Elf in any other build. So any gold in there is basically gold I can't use for damage, for my waving, for anywhere else. So that's why getting some extra damage from having a witch in there also helps my Dark Elf, which is a great thing for me. But again, that's something you have to try for yourself. If you don't have the witch nodes, you probably can run another crowd controller in here instead. So make those tests for yourself, and it really also depends. If you're really lucky with getting a lot of knockback swords, for example, and crowd control swords, then Slingers and Mech Ram is probably the option for you to go. And if you're really lucky on getting staffs, then it's Dorothy and so on. So you have to also make those tests for yourself. So that was also the rundown on Slingers. Again, the damage numbers are higher than with Windy. Of course, that might depend a little bit on if you're laggy or how the run goes in general. But yeah, I can win whichever I use in here. I just feel like, for me, it's also fun to use Windy for change, because you don't really use Windy that much in other game modes. And one thing I want to say is that you don't have to level the crowd controllers. Basically, as long as they are enough so that you can get them promoted, that will be enough for you, for all of the crowd controllers. So they are not there to be doing damage. So it's cheap for you to test the different crowd controllers. The Witches, Windy, Mech Ram, Slingers, Giant Ogre even, you can try also Giant Ogre. For the knockback, it's a great crowd controller option. Ice Wizard is always great to have. I would also always have Ice Wizard in my Infinite Colony build, if possible. These are the elf items I'm currently running. So this gives me my elf healing. I would also like to get the bow with the cooldown skill level +1, but hey, these are super great. One rune is missing, and running the critical chance orb, so that again, I try to push the elf healing as much as I can, because otherwise it's just relying on stos, and you kind of need both healers if you want to really do Infinite Colony. And like I said, my Pure Wizard is on 6.2 seconds cooldown. My Poseidon is below that, so Poseidon is double proccing. So I have double cooldown items for Poseidon. Both of the items are double cooldown. I switched to using these after filming the Way build video, so I'm also using these items in my Way build right now, with the gold orb as well to boost the critical chance. That will boost damage of Poseidon a lot. These are the treasures I'm using for this build. As you can see, they are really defensive heavy. There's 3 defensive treasures and only 1 offensive treasure, Power Glow. And again, this is something you have to test for yourself. Personally, if I switch out, for example, Unicorn's Heal for Sharp Arrow, my healing becomes a lot worse. Like, my survivability becomes a lot worse. I'm struggling to win the battles. It might be a little bit faster though with this setup, because you have more power, you have more critical chance. So again, you want to try this. If you can survive like this, the more offensive stuff you can have, the better that will be, the faster most likely the run will be. But you have to try how much defense you need in order to survive. And another option would be also to run the Black Pearl in here, which is a great option if you can also handle that. That would allow me to get 0 in the build, so that I could get more damage to slowed monsters, which is a great option. Like, again, you don't have to level up 0, he doesn't need to do any kind of damage, he's just there to give that chill and frost to slow monsters and make them take extra damage. And also you can stack some cooldown skill level +1 lines on on 0 as well. Again, this doesn't work as well for me personally right now on this build, but it's definitely something you have to try if that's going to be better for you to run, instead of running a defensive treasure or sharp arrow in here. Of course, you could run like this for maximum offense basically, and that would be even better. But for me, I'm currently running this because it helped me survive without really leveling the Dark Elf too much. And then quickly about the skill tree. So in this case, my skill tree starts from the physical path instead of the poison path as I use in my waving. The reason for this is because I want to have the full physical tree to boost the Dark Elf healing. So starting from the physical path, I get a little bit more healing. I also do have the stone castle in here to boost Dark Elf damage as well. That's why I also have the Bowmaster promotion instead of the Dark Lightning Archer promotion for this hero over here. So basically, again, this boosts my healing. If you want more offense, you should start from other paths to boost that attack power of your damage dealing heroes. But this is the thing I'm running right now. So starting from here, and then I have the ice tree for Poseidon, the Poseidon runes over here. And then I also do have the windy nodes, because I have enough skill points. If you don't have these, it's going to be probably a little bit worse to run windy as well. So this one will give you a chance for your tornadoes to freeze enemies, which is great for crowd control. It's great for additional damage, because you have this node over here, which makes the monsters take more damage if they are frozen. And also, you have this tornado plus 1 second, so it gives you more duration for the tornado, which again is great for your crowd control for windy. So you likely want to have these. And also on windy, I do have the tornado plus 1 rune on the staff. So you basically also want this. That makes you have the 4 tornadoes on every cast of windy in here. Otherwise, the ice tree boosts Poseidon's damage, and then I have, of course, the poison tree to boost my Serra and Succubus damage. In the summon tree, I just have the witch node. Okay, I didn't even have a Slinger PS node in the testing with Slingers, so if you run Slingers, you will want the Slingers PS node if you can reach it. Since I don't have it right now in here, I'm running the witch node in here, which gives me 5% increased damage per witch. Again, boost my other damage dealers and Dark Elves damage. In the lightning tree, I just have basically the extra damage to slow stunned monsters. Helps you to clear out the monsters faster. Sword node to boost your damage, and also the assassin nodes. Dark Assassin is just level 10,000 for my build, which is low level. He doesn't do any damage, so he's just there to give the critical debuff to the enemies, so that I can kill them faster and also get more healing out of them if my Dark Elf hits those enemies with a critical strike. And in the fire tree, I just have the sword node over here. I don't have any lightning damage dealers or fire damage dealers in this build, so I can just cut through this section over here from the skill tree. I will have 15% less damage for my fire and lightning heroes, but again, I don't have those damage dealers, so that's not an issue in here. And the decreased gold is also not an issue in Infinite Colony either, so I can just skip through here and get the sword node with a little bit less skill points than what I would have to have if I were to go through the other circle over here and do that instead. So that is my skill tree I'm currently running in my Infinite Colony.